Hey, it's Emma Chamberlain. I designed these new glasses for Warby Parker, and I basically can't take them off. Like, I'm showering in them and sleeping in them. They're just that good. Go see them all at warbyparker.com. And you know what? Have a good day too. Okay? All right? Bye.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America, and I am delighted to have you here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. I am glad to have you with me. Y'all, I run a pretty loose, I'm a good boss. I think so, at least. I take my employees to Las Vegas, buy them nice gifts, give them bonuses. How am I rewarded? I'm in my office, open the fridge, and it smells like rear end. Someone who will go nameless, David, left a pile of turkey in the fridge. There is no wrapper. There is just a mass pile of turkey sitting in the fridge on the shelf. I got nothing. I don't understand. I don't know. Sometimes I feel abused by my employees. That's all I'm saying. I got to move on. Can't make the show about my grievances. No, must make it about your grievances. I had an interaction, as an aside, because there is something substantive to get to, I promise, on Tim Walz and Stolen Valor. Had an interaction with a former listener, Instagram follower, who no longer listens, no longer follows. I have room for a higher IQ listener now and a follower on Instagram. He was like, well, as a listener, I think, my show, I actually just got the ratings. I'm a very good radio show host. I have very high ratings. In fact, I hope at some point to be able to tell you the great turnaround stories of having put me on a couple of stations. Those stations are now doing way better than they were before having put me on live. One of the things that I learned is never listen to the listeners. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but every single person has an idea of how I should do the show. And if I listen to how all of you think I should do the show, it wouldn't be my highly rated show. It would be something else. I would be a hostage to my listeners. And it's remarkable. And so this guy was like, as a listener, I think you should be more accommodating to X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, you're an idiot. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is I'm going to talk about something that my listeners have emailed me about, and they're very split. Some say it's inappropriate. You shouldn't talk about it. There's a misunderstanding here. Clearly, there must be more. And then the others who say, have at it. I'm going to have at it because I think it's a big deal. Tim Walz is a fraud. What I find very notable is in the last 24 hours, as Republicans have unloaded the dirt, Democrats are like, oh, y'all are so scared of him. Oh, you must be, you're shaking in your boots. He must be that strong of a pick. No, actually, we didn't want Josh Shapiro. We wanted Tim Walz. Of all the candidates, Republicans wanted to be Vice President Harris's nominee. We got the one we wanted. Now, the Democrats got the one they wanted. In fairness, they wanted J.D. Vance, and they got him. We got Tim Walz. So both candidates picked the pick that the other side wanted them to pick. Walz is a terrible, terrible vice presidential pick, and I will tell you why. Tim Walz is a fraud. In addition to putting tampons in boys' bathrooms, in addition to giving pedophiles legal protections in Minnesota, in addition to believing you have no free speech rights on the internet, in addition to raising taxes on senior citizens during COVID, in addition to taxing Social Security benefits in Minnesota, in addition to shutting kids out of school for a year because of the unions, in addition to all of the other bad stuff, Tim Walz claims to be a combat veteran. In fact, I want to play you a clip. This is Tim Walz, where he takes on the NRA, bravely takes on the NRA. Listen to what he says.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
We can make sure those weapons of war that I carried in war stay out of people's hands. Good news for you, Tim Walz never went to war, so he never carried a gun in war, which means there will be no gun control. He's lied about his record for a very long time. Yes, you're hearing me say this, and it is the truth, and it is something the media itself has given him a pass on. Tim Walz claims that he signed back up for the Army after 9/11, and he ran for office for Congress claiming he was coming back from the battlefield to fight for the people of Minnesota. He never went to the battlefield. He actually quit the Army. When they told him he was going to be deployed to Iraq, he submitted his retirement notice and left to run for office. And he left and ran for office claiming a rank he never actually earned because he didn't complete the training to get the rank because he retired from the Army. They were going to promote him and send him to Iraq. And you know how I know this? Well, the media has found the person who had to go dodge the bullets in Iraq because Tim Walz decided he wanted a political career instead. This is from Alpha News. This is an interview with the man who took Tim Walz's place in Iraq.
The public needs to know how pathetic his leadership was as a National Guardsman.
On a 150-year-old farm in Brewster, Tom Behrens hopes his tell-it-like-it-is style will finally get the attention he believes it deserves in Minnesota's race for governor. In a way, he's back again to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. You know, I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Behrens' new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier when Behrens says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrens was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, and if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Behrens would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrens says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
But then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
It kind of just sat there. You know, when he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a command sergeant, retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and all this lie that he was telling. The state of Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a command sergeant major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And he was saying that, and there was lots of public, lots of cards coming in the mail, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just tooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors that went through all the process and put all the time in.
A spokesperson for the Minnesota National Guard said Walz wasn't able to retire as a command sergeant major since he failed to complete coursework and requirements related to the rank. Verified documents show the Army corrected his service record. Walz was reduced in rank to an E8 Master Sergeant after retirement and his conditional promotion. Alpha News again asked Governor Walz if he's using the Command Sergeant Major rank on his campaign website for political gain this year. A spokesperson said this has been in the news before and pointed us to a past story where Walz said, quote, "Normally this type of partisan political attack only comes from one who's never worn a uniform."
There you have it. That goes on for a little while longer. So he's lied about his military record. He's claimed a rank he did not earn. He left men on the battlefield. And now he's had the audacity to attack J.D. Vance for using the GI Bill after he went to Iraq and served in combat. J.D. Vance has come out swinging this morning over what Walz said about him.
When the United States Marine Corps, when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful.
Yes. Not only that, what's so notable is that the Minnesota Press Corps covered for Walz. The Minnesota Press Corps is pretty far left. The newspaper, the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, a pretty far left newspaper, they refused to run the story by the man you heard who took his place. He gave them all the documentation and they refused to run the story. Tim Walz is a case of stolen valor. He's claimed that he retired from a rank in the military he did not earn. He walked away from. The military left him at an E8 as a master sergeant. He walked away from the battlefield. He walked away from his men. He made a big stink about rejoining the Army after 9/11, and then the moment they decided to deploy him, he's like, I'm out. He never actually has served in combat anywhere on planet Earth, and yet you heard the clip. He himself said it. Here, let me play this for you again. This is Tim Walz talking about his time in the military.
Sure, we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
We can make sure those weapons of war I carried in war don't fall in civilian hands. Tim Walz never saw combat. Never. According to his own resume, he re-enlisted in the National Guard following the 9/11 attacks and did not see combat. He retired in 2005 after being told he was going to Iraq. He served in Italy. I don't think during World War II, though. Not old enough for that. He's grandstanded time and time again. And even the people he served with have complained about Tim Walz abandoning them the moment they were told to go to Iraq. He wanted the claim of being in the military, but he did not want the obligations that came with it. J.D. Vance served in Iraq. Now, listen, there's another point here. Some of you Democrats want to call and complain. I can see the email has come through. Well, at least he served. Donald Trump got out of Vietnam with a barrel bone spur. A month ago, we all saw Donald Trump take a bullet. Tim Walz fled the battlefield before one was shot in his direction. Donald Trump took a bullet. Tim Walz avoided service and put other people in harm's way in the way of bullets. J.D. Vance was willing to go to Iraq and serve his country. Whether he did it actively in the field or in an office somewhere, he still went to Iraq. Tim Walz wants to cast aspersions on J.D. Vance for using the GI Bill and getting an Ivy League degree, claiming he's some sort of folksy charmer from Minnesota because he didn't get a degree from any sort of college anyone's ever heard of. What we've heard of is that he retired at a position in the military on his website that he didn't actually earn. He's been lying about his military credentials. He's been lying about his service, and now he has the audacity to attack J.D. Vance. And then he says Donald Trump weaseled his way out of Vietnam. Yes, Donald Trump absolutely did. And a month ago on a stage took a bullet because he's running for president of the United States, something that Tim Walz made sure someone else would do in Iraq so he didn't have to.
We have one more act for you this evening. I don't even need to say his name. Mr. Bob Dylan.
From the director of Walk the Line and Ford vs. Ferrari.
If anyone is going to hold your attention on stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
And starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan.
Are you a freak?
Hope so.
Once upon a time, you're just so fine.
Inspired by the true story.
I want to know which side he's on.
This Christmas.
They just want me singing Blowing in the Wind for the rest of my life.
Bobby, what do you want to be?
Whatever it is they don't want me to be.
He defied everyone.
Turn it down!
Play loud!
To change everything.
He's our Elvis.
With no direction.
Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, Monica Barbaro.
Make some noise, BD. Track some mud on the carpet.
A complete unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17 not admitted without parent.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson. Oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today. Y'all, I'm not making this up. The New York Times this is their sentence describing Kamala Harris's skills. Ms. Harris, a former prosecutor, and more relevantly, a black woman in the unrelenting spotlight of national politics, wears broad-shouldered suits, pearls and heels, sometimes crisp chucks. She marshals an arched brow, a studied hand flip, carefully curated sentences. Carefully curated sentences, unburdened by what was, no less, those carefully curated sentences. Good Lord. Joe Biden is doing an interview with Bob Costa for Robert Costa, not Bob Costa, the sports anchor, Robert Costa from CBS, for Face the Nation this Sunday. Who would have guessed that Joe Biden would suddenly be more accessible to the press after 4 years of keeping him in his basement carefully guarded than Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee? And it is a close collaboration with the press corps. The press is completely fine with Kamala Harris not being exposed to them in unscripted moments because they want her to be elected. Again, the way for Donald Trump to win when a national press corps is protecting Kamala Harris is to go to the local press. Go sit down with the local TV station, WSB TV in Atlanta, the most watched TV channel. Yes, it is tied to my flagship station, but it is the most watched TV news in the Southeast, one of the most watched ABC affiliates in the country. Go sit down with Justin Farmer. Go there to ABC and WSB TV in Atlanta. Go do that. Have an interview. Go do an interview in Savannah, Georgia. Go do an interview in Jacksonville, Florida. Go do an interview in Phoenix. Go do an interview in Tucson. Go to local reporters. The local reporters tend to actually be more fair-minded. They tend to not be aggressively partisan leftists. Go to Pittsburgh. Go to Harrisburg. Go to Waukesha. Go to Milwaukee. Go to Lansing. Go to Grand Rapids. Go to Detroit. Sit down with the local newscast. Do an interview with the local anchor about the local states, and you will bypass a national press corps that is hostile to you. This is not hard. You just have to get on the plane and do it. Instead of going and hanging out with a streamer somewhere, this race is going to be decided by the 40 and 50-year-olds who come home at night, they're tired, they want to go to bed, and they watch the local news, not the national news, and they get the soundbite there. Go do it. You'll win. Now, you'll win if you go to EdenPureDeals.com and you put in Eric Bogo as your discount code, ERICKBOGO. Why? Because You can buy one and get one free. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm is an air purifier. It generates O3, that's ozone. It gets into the cracks and crevices wherever the odor hides and wipes them out. It diffuses the ions. So odor is from something called ions, and O3 latches onto ions, weighs them down, and they die. That's what the Eden Pure Thunderstorm does, and it does it very effectively. It does it with dirty diaper smells. It does it with litter box smells. It does it with musty odors. It does it with smoke odors from a fireplace, a cigar, a cigarette, whatever. It wipes them out. Works in a rental car. You can plug it in with a USB cord, or it works by plugging it into the wall. I've used it to wipe out bad odors in rental cars and hotel rooms. It's so small you can travel with it. I keep one in my travel bag. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO. You buy one, you get one free. You buy 5, you get 5 free. You buy 10, you get 10 free. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code Eric Bogo this week. Go there now. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I am delighted to have you with me. If you want to be on, also don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. I want to go to Ivan. Welcome to the show, Ivan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
I see a correlation between Tim Walz abandoning his fellow soldiers and the Biden-Harris administration abandoning American military and civilians in Afghanistan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the Republicans.
Yeah. Okay. Can you say that again? I was very rudely, Ivan. Somebody was texting me and I had to respond to it about the gathering, and I missed the point there you're making about Biden abandoning the service members.
Yeah, I think there's a correlation between Walz abandoning his fellow soldiers and the Biden-Harris administration abandoning American military and civilian people in Afghanistan. And I think that ought to be brought out.
Okay, that not only is that a good point. Do you know, tie that to we still have Americans held hostage by Hamas. I think it's a very good point. There are Americans we stranded in Afghanistan. I think most of them have gotten out now. But yeah, look, there's so many angles here for them to play, and the border too. I have a great point. I wish I had thought about that one. It's a great point. All of this stuff, the border continues to matter. In fact, so have you seen the Harris Walz yard sign? Okay, side note here. Side note. You need to go look at the new yard sign for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. One of the things Democrats have prided them on for the last 20 years is their design teams are so much better than the Republicans. Y'all, my golden doodle could have designed a better yard sign and better logo than what the Harris Walz team came up with. Not only that, they made the Harris very tall and the Walz is very small. The Walz on the Harris Walz sign is so squat and small, and illegal could climb over it and get into the country. That's how open borders they are. They compressed and shrunk the walls on the sign so illegals can still get into the country. And Donald Trump is signaling he intends to make that a big issue still. This is Trump by phone on Fox.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to drill, baby, drill. And then number two, and I can do lots of things on the first day. It's not one thing or two things or four things. We're going to do lots of things on the first day. But we're going to close up the border. We're going to let people come in, but they have to come in legally.
They have to come in legally. Close up the border, come in legally. Y'all, that's actually, I mean, the winning message for the Trump team. Now, here's the thing. In all seriousness, many of you remain concerned that Donald Trump isn't doing what it takes to win. In fact, I want to read you a text message I got from Charlie, who's screening calls. He says, dude, The amount of women calling from all over the country complaining that Trump is losing their friends and just furious he won't stay on message is like nothing I've ever experienced in all these years. They're legitimately upset. These are women in their 30s to some lady and her sister in Kansas City who are in their 90s or 80s rather. I know you don't communicate with the campaign directly all the time, but man, if this is some kind of microcosm of a large reaction, he's in trouble if this continues. They're all begging for is just him to give a vision for the future and attacks on crazy Kamala. That's it. So anecdote is not data. I believe, however, over time that anecdotes turn into data. When you keep hearing something over and over and over and over and over and over and over, those anecdotes tend to become data. In fact, I know a guy who's a marketer, and he says he actually trusts the anecdotes more than the data because the anecdotes tend to be ahead of the data. He says the difference is discernment. If you have one person who complains about something all the time, that's not an anecdote. That's that person's pet peeve. When you have a lot of different people saying the same thing over and over, that tends to be a leading indicator on where the data is going to be. The leading indicator on the data right now is that Kamala Harris has an enthusiasm that Donald Trump has lost, except among his hardcore supporters. That enthusiasm that he lost came in large part from a debate stage in Atlanta, Georgia on Saturday, where Donald Trump decided to spend more time attacking Brian Kemp, the Republican governor of the state, who is already endorsed him and is supporting him, and that governor's wife, than attacking Kamala Harris. Threw him off his game. There does, in truth, seem to be something going on where Trump seems to be off his game. My guess is, in fact, that between a shooting in Pennsylvania and Joe Biden bailing on the race, shifting it dramatically, Donald Trump had it in his head how this was going to go, and it's now not going that way. And he needs to get his head back in the game. This is broken record time because I've already said it twice today, and I want to say it one more time because it really is true. The national media is in the tank for Kamala Harris. They have been complicit. They can deny it all they want, but every American knows the American press conspired with the Democrats to cover up Joe Biden's mental failings. Every single one of you listening now knows that the National Press Corps was in on this. It's one reason I actually believe that if Donald Trump does get elected, he manages to pull it off, he should get rid of the Brady press room and throw the press out of the White House. If Donald Trump got the press corps out of the West Wing and put them in the old executive office building or the new executive office building that's even further away, it would be a win for everyone because the White House press corps conspired with the Democrats to cover up Joe Biden. And it's not just them. Tim Walz did as well. This is Tim Walz standing outside the White House just a month ago.
None of us are denying Thursday night was a bad performance. It was a bad hit, if you will, on that. But it doesn't impact what I believe he's delivering.
Walz is willing to stand outside the White House, having met with the president, and say that Donald Trump or that Joe Biden is mentally competent. Joe Biden is sharp. Joe Biden is perfectly fine. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz conspired to cover up Joe Biden's mental decline, along with the press corps. So you boot the press corps out of the White House if you get elected, Donald Trump. In the meantime, there's a place called Green Bay. I own a football team that plays there, the National Football League. There's a place called Eau Claire. It's more of a Republican-leaning swing area in the state of Wisconsin. They have media markets. You go into that media market. You sit down with the local anchor. You can spend a day. You can hop around. Say, today we're going to Wisconsin. And in the morning, I'm going to sit down and pre-record an interview in Eau Claire. Then I'm going to hop over to Green Bay and do one there. And then I'm going to hop down to Milwaukee and I'm going to do one there. I'm going to do those. And then on the same day, it's possible for me to hop over to Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo and then go to Detroit and maybe even go up to Traverse City. And I'm going to do a series of pre-recorded interviews there for the newscast that night with the local media. So you've hit Wisconsin and Michigan. They're right next to each other, right across Lake Michigan. You go hit those media markets. You hit those media markets. Maybe you go down to South Bend, Indiana, because that covers southern Michigan and their media market. You hit those. And you do those. You take a Monday. You go do those interviews with the local press. Those are going to air, depending on your time of day for your record, then the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock newscast and the 10 or 11 o'clock newscast. In Central Time tends to be 10 p.m. Your working class men and women who are trying to stay informed, who are going to decide the election, who aren't on the Twitch stream, they're not on Discord. Maybe they listen to Joe Rogan, but not for 2.5 hours. They're going to get your exclusive interview with your local newscaster that's going to play the snot out of that interview because they got the exclusive in their media market. You got 3 or 4 news markets. You got 3 or 4 networks. Everybody who is your core supporter and a whole lot of undecideds are going to tune into that newscast. It doesn't even have to be the most listened to, most watched TV cast. If you know it's big libs at the most listened to, most watched newscast, you go build up one of the others. You build a relationship and people are going to tune in. It's going to help their ratings. They're going to be nice to you because you're helping them with the number one news outlet in that media market by competing against them and giving them an exclusive. Then you hop over to Michigan. You take Monday, you knock out Wisconsin, maybe you knock out Wisconsin, but let's say you take Wisconsin on Monday, you take Michigan on Tuesday, you go to Grand Rapids, you go to Kalamazoo, you go over to Detroit, maybe up to Traverse City. On Wednesday, you hop over to Erie, then you go down to Youngstown and you bleed over into the Pennsylvania market. Maybe you go to Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, go over to Allentown, go over to Reading, go over to Philly. You do 3 or 4 interviews there the same way you did. And then you know what? The next day, you've done Monday in Wisconsin. You've done Tuesday in Michigan. You've done Wednesday in Pennsylvania. You fly down to Georgia on Thursday. You hit Atlanta. You hit Savannah. Go down to Jacksonville, shore up Florida. Go to Valdosta. That's your Thursday. And then you fly across the country. And you go to Phoenix, and you go to Tucson, and you go to Las Vegas. You end your week in the West. You've hit the local media markets. Fly from Las Vegas, go over to Carson City, go up to Reno, cover those media markets. You've sat down with your local newscast. And what have you done? You've talked about the border. You've talked about border security. You've talked about how illegal aliens are impacting their area. You've talked about how the Harris Wall sign they've made the wall so small the illegal aliens could climb over it because they want open borders. Tim Walz wanted Minnesota to be a sanctuary state. He wants sanctuary cities. He said that he would buy an investment in a ladder company if illegals couldn't come into this country because of Donald Trump's wall. That if Donald Trump made it 25 feet high, he would buy investments in a company that made ladders 30 feet high because we need the illegal aliens coming into this country. You highlight the national security issue. You highlight the terrorists we've already rounded up who've come across the border illegally. You contrast that with Kamala Harris. That's the number one issue for voters right now is illegal immigration. Number 2 is the economy. You talk about how Minnesota has a massive tax rate, that more people have left the state of Minnesota than have come into Minnesota, and that the Harris-Biden administration, they've wrecked the economy. They brought inflation. They said it was transitory, and it's not. You do local media interviews. You talk about the same issues. You talk about crime. You talk about inflation. You talk about immigration. Crime, inflation, immigration in Grand Rapids. Crime, inflation, immigration in Lansing. Crime, inflation, immigration in Eau Claire. Crime, inflation, and immigration in Atlanta. Crime, inflation, immigration in Las Vegas. Crime, inflation, and immigration in Phoenix. Crime, inflation, immigration in the Charlotte media market. Crime, inflation, immigration in the Pittsburgh market. You fly around the country. You find the local newscasts. You give them exclusives. They all cover it. Everybody watches it. Nobody really cares about your 20-year-old streamer who gave you a Tesla because no one in their 40s and 50s who works all day has time at night to come home and load up a Twitch channel and find some kid they've never heard of who may have 2 million views, but they may be half of them in Europe. You don't know. But I guarantee you that when you give the interview in Eau Claire, Wisconsin with the local TV station, every single person who watches lives in Eau Claire and is a voter in Eau Claire, and they're going to go vote for you because you talked about crime, inflation, and immigration, and Kamala Harris is talking about good vibes and joy cometh in the morning. There's a way for Trump to redouble his efforts and for him to focus. Here's the problem, and you must understand this and take this to heart. Donald Trump has Chris LaCivita and Susie Walz. They're very good at their jobs. They know how to run and win campaigns. But the problem is Donald Trump's in charge. And Donald Trump Jr., for that matter, believe they're the best campaign strategists for the campaign. If they listen to Walz and LaCivita, they're going to win. If they don't, they're going to lose. It's that simple. And right now, they got to get their head back in the game. There's a path for them to win, but right now it seems like their head's not in the game. Now, I need to get your head in the game with Old Glory Bank because Old Glory Bank is my bank, and I love them, and you'll love them if you use them. OldGloryBank.com. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. You go to OldGloryBank.com. You sign up for an account. They have great online tools, online bill pay, online budgeting. They have free checking. They've got free savings. When's the last time you had a free checking account or a free savings account? Not only that, even with the free checking, free savings, you get access to their app. You get their great debit card. And you can even deposit cash in your account through the app on your phone. You go to 88,000 retail locations around the country. It generates a QR code. You say, I got $500 in cash. I want it at the slots in Vegas. I need to deposit it in my online bank account that has no local branch. You can do that with Old Glory Bank. Not with the old online bank I used to have. Made it impossible. I had to have a real physical local bank just so I could deposit cash. Not anymore. With Old Glory Bank, you can do it all. You can at OldGloryBank.com. By conservatives, for conservatives. John Rich, Larry Elder, Ben Carson, some of the original investors in Old Glory Bank. They wanted a bank for conservatives, by conservatives, where your account's never going to get suspended because you're a gun owner or you're a local gun business. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. It is my bank. It can be your bank too. I love it. You'll love it too. OldGloryBank.com. Greetings, conversationalists. I hope you are well. The phone number here, 877-973-7425. Listener Tom just sent me a note on Twitter. He says, if the media strategy is so clear to you and most of your listeners, why isn't it clear to Trump? People get paid $1 million a year to keep him on message. Y'all, the campaign knows this. I don't need to do a memo to the campaign. I might, but I don't need to. He's surrounded by a very good campaign team. They know this. The problem is the campaign team knowing this and getting Trump to do this are two different things. And listen, if I tell you what's really going on here, I'll get his angry emails from people saying, you just have Trump derangement syndrome. You don't like him. That's not actually true. I mean, any of you who email me, I guarantee you gave him less money than I've given to him to win, because I would really not like to get Kamala Harris and Tim Walz elected. We really need to have them defeated. We really need Donald Trump to go do local market media interviews around the country. The problem here is that when Trump and Trump Jr. believe that they are the best campaign strategists on the campaign team, because they won in 2016 when everyone thought they couldn't, well, it's real hard to get buy-in to the professionals when they distrust the professional class. Something's got to change, though. They need to do a local market strategy and bypass the national press.